What do you mean you don't have hot sauce? This is Texas. We put Tabasco on cornflakes. You can play it safe if you want to, but you gotta risk it to get that biscuit. When it comes to business, you gotta look out for the cookout. That's how we do it in Texas. What do you mean my accent is too southern? Well, we're fixing to get it on Solve for X. Welcome to Solve for X, the podcast where curiosity meets collaboration. I'm Dr. Rick Fernandez, your host on this journey into the heart of education and innovation. Welcome back. We're Solving for X here in Houston, Texas. I'm your host, Dr. Rick Fernandez. You know my guest. He's probably number 5 on the court, but number 1 in your heart, representing the Lorena Leopards. Trustee, CEO, man about town, Russ Johnson. Russ,
woo!
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I always love spending time with you, man. If anybody's a mover and a shaker, it's you, dude. I'm the salt in your salt shaker.
Oh, God. Okay, we're going to try. I promise we're going to try to stay on track during this interview.
Let's do it.
All right, so Solve for X, and I know you got a lot of topics you want to get to, but let's talk about Tessera.
Okay.
What is the work? What are you solving for? What does the company solve for?
Yeah, so first off, it's Tessera, which is kind of funny because when we decided on that to name our company, we all said it wrong. And we were like, are we sure we're saying it right? So we had to look it up. So it's Tessera, but there's meaning behind it because it's like your company name should like match your identity and your beliefs.
Okay.
And so a tessera is a single tile of a mosaic. And so, we focus on school safety and security, which this is a very complex problem,
no doubt,
to address. And so we're just publicly stating that we're just part of the solution, that to really impact change in school safety, we've got to have a lot of people at the table, and the technology piece and the processes and all of that, that's just one part of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, what are the layers that need to be solved for as you're going through the process to get the maximum safety that you can as a school?
Sure. So there are 3 primary pillars that you should focus on. So there's the facility piece, right? And then there's the technology piece, but then there's the human factor. And it's interesting because in public education, just the way that funding is architected, many districts can pass a bond and we can address the facility, put it in secure vestibules, put it in fencing, all that stuff. We can take bond dollars and we can buy cameras and, electrify doors and panic buttons and all that stuff. But bond dollars don't address probably the biggest part of this, which is the human element. Do we know that when there's an incident, that there's enough muscle memory that those who are trained lifelong educators are going to know what to do in response to something like that? But even taking it beyond responses, do we have people trained in like behavioral threat, indicators, so we can try to identify it before it becomes an incident? And so, I've been doing this for about 30 years, and this is my last hurrah. And so I want to leave knowing that I left an impact, in public education. And so that's why we decided to do this all over again.
So I'm interested in your perspective as not only as a CEO and a founder, but a board member. I feel like a lot of times when there's a tragedy that happens, there's a rush to do things to show that we're doing things rather than, okay, let's be methodical. Do you get that feeling, and are you able to kind of see that from both perspectives and kind of help navigate that?
And so we call it the pendulum effect.
Okay.
And so what happens is we have a tragedy.
Yeah.
And superintendents, school boards feel this incredible pressure that even though it didn't happen in their community wants to know, what are we doing so we're not the next blank, right? And so what we find sometimes is people will rush and whatever it is. I know one superintendent, and they were getting incredible pressure from the community, so they went and hired more SROs. I know another one that went out and bought more cameras. I know another one that went out and bought metal detectors and gun detectors and
the bulletproof film, all of it.
Everything. And it's like, those in and of itself aren't bad steps to take, but what we've got to do is we've got to make sure that we're proactive in these conversations so that we're not waiting for an incident and now we're calling a play without a playbook. We really should like be building this playbook and know that, you know, where we are on the spectrum of where we want to be, and just intentionally make small steps to improve, so that we're not just throwing money at the problem, because school safety, you can't buy your way out of that problem.
No.
It don't matter how much money you have, you will not buy that problem away.
So, okay, I'm going to ask you to put your school board hat on.
Yeah.
I got to imagine that the technology is evolving fairly quickly.
Yeah.
How do you balance this can make us safer versus now it's starting to feel like a different culture, the surveillance, like we're getting,
Sure.
How do you balance that as a school board?
So one thing we've got to acknowledge is that schools are still the safest place for kids to be. The media with all of the headlines, I mean, tragedy sells, but there are fewer acts of violence happening in schools than in just about any other place where people are. Right. So first off, we've got to debunk the rhetoric that schools are not safe, because they are. Secondly, we cannot take our schools and make it feel different than the environment that everybody wants to create, where kids want to be there, and that's welcoming, that's open, that is a part of the community. We still have to open up our schools, but that doesn't mean that we can't take preventative and reactionary steps, because we should.
Sure.
But, you know, it takes a community. And I saw a post on Facebook where a parent was dropping off their kid, and there was this big burly dude standing outside the school with his arms crossed, and she took a picture of the guy. And I appreciated her post, because she said, when I saw the guy, I was intimidated, and I was like, what's this guy doing there? And it happened to be a dad that said, I'm going to stand outside the school during student drop-off. I'm just going to keep an eye on things. And it's like, man, we got to get back to a world where parents, community members are getting involved, and we're doing those things, because those are incredibly strong deterrents. If we have adults outside the schools, we have adults inside the schools. You know, Watchdogs, a very effective program.
Sure.
And so, so we just have to figure out a way to engage our community and tap in on them. You know, in my own community, somebody had posted a picture where somebody took a chair, propped open a door, and shouldn't have happened, but it did. But rather than take a picture and post it on social media, why don't you go park, go in the school, call attention to this, and figure out, okay, so what do we do so that we're not doing this anymore, right? So there's a right and a wrong way to approach this. One is productive, and we can learn from it. The other is very community against the school feeling. And so we've got to build those bridges between the community and the school. And most communities, they are very tight-knit. They see the value of the schools. It's just, we have to ask ourselves, is there more that we can engage our community to help us?
You know, obviously you've got a great network here in Texas, and you're hearing a lot with the superintendent role. And I'm seeing it change and evolve like right before my eyes with a lot of our friends and colleagues.
Sure.
It's a scary place to be. It's a scary job. It almost feels like it's gone from a school leader, servant leader, to full-time politician, because if I'm not the politician, I can't even get anything done.
Sure.
What's your sense of the superintendent role now in the state of Texas?
Yeah, so, I mean, it really weighs so heavily on my heart, because I've seen really good superintendents tap out early because of the political landscape. It's gotten crazy. It feels like to me, and this is just Russ Johnson's opinion, but it feels like to me that we're losing the respect of what it means to be an educator. And I mean, even coming out of the last legislative session, I mean, we're all patting ourselves on the back because teachers got raises, and that's great. Every teacher deserves to make $100,000 a year. But we can't forget campus leaders, and we can't forget district leaders. And I mean, it goes so far because there was legislation proposed to put a cap on superintendent salary. And it's like, wait a minute, why is Austin deciding this? Let the community, let the school board decide what you want to pay your superintendent based on all the various factors. Austin shouldn't be telling me that my superintendent can only make 2 times the highest paid teacher. Maybe that's what it should be. Maybe it's not, but let us decide. That's the independent school district. And because of the political landscape evolving and changing, we're seeing more trustees now running that aren't staunch supporters of public education. And you don't have to love public education, but don't be on the board. Be on the board of something that you are passionate about. Don't join a board for something that you're passionately against. And so, and I think about, we did a research project when I was in Leadership TASB last year on superintendent sustainability and wellness. And so I crafted this survey, sent it out statewide, had about 200 people respond. And some of the comments that I got from these superintendents, man, it just...
Would you mind sharing if you don't?
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah. So one superintendent commented and said, I've never had a board member ask me how I'm doing. Dude, what kind of job is that where you've got 7 bosses and they're never asking you how you're doing? Many comments around how this is a 24/7, 365-day-a-year job. And even though I have vacation days, when I take those vacation days, I'm still on the clock. And, and then I think about it as a trustee, and I apologize to my superintendent all the time, but it might be, I might be binge watching, a documentary or something on a Saturday night, and I'm like, oh, I should mention this to my superintendent. So I'm texting him at 4 o'clock in the morning and like, this is low priority, no need to respond. But what's a superintendent going to do when he wakes up and he sees he's got a text from a trustee? He's going to respond immediately. And so like some of this stuff is self-inflicted. And if we can just create some awareness and maybe some self-awareness to where we can like, all right, guys, let's not all text superintendents separately. Let's figure out, we got to worry about walking quarrels, but let's come up with some process. Let's set like quiet hours for our superintendent. Let's maybe even put into our superintendent's annual evaluation how well he or she is doing in taking care of him or herself. We don't talk about it. We talk about accountability. We talk about school safety. We talk about budget. We talk about legislative stuff. We don't talk about how our superintendent is taking care of themselves so that they can show up to work every day with their cup full so that then they can empty it out throughout the day on their leadership and fill their cup. So then they take it out and they pour it out on their team. I mean, we've got to be filling that cup up, and we're not. And even those that probably do a better job than me with their superintendent, there's all these external factors that are emptying the cup.
That's right.
It's a leaky bucket.
Do you think it's bad practice when we're talking, school boards talking about, their financial responsibilities, and to some degree, I feel like there's an emphasis on touting the lack of administration that they have. We haven't increased our principals' pay. It feels like that's almost districts are touting that, and my personal belief is be careful that you say those things, because at some point it's no longer worth doing.
Right.
The job is no longer worth doing.
Yeah.
And these are people that aren't doing this job for money.
Right.
It's never been about that.
No, it's never been about money. And what's crazy is, and we talk about this as a board, especially on the heels of all this research that we've done, because our superintendent is hypersensitive about his pay increase. And I mean, he's like, I don't want more than what I can give my people, because he cares about his people. He cares about the perception. And I think that's how most superintendents are.
They all are like that.
Right.
Like
but I counter that and I say, well, Dr. Tessera, I can appreciate that, but you have to understand, we have one employee that we're responsible for that we need to take care of. And we adopt the budget, and we can have conversations about what we need to do with the budget so that you can take care of your people. But I am not going to neglect my duties to take care of you and reward you for the great things that you're doing, because I'm worried about others, right? Or I'm more worried about the optics, right? I mean, of course that goes into it a little bit, but we've got to get beyond whether this looks bad. And then on social media, someone in our own community posted, Well, Dr. Tessera is making more than the governor. Well, okay, so you're comparing salaries. Let's compare everything. Let's really put the cards face up.
Yeah.
But even so, I don't care how much the governor makes because the governor's not setting the climate and the culture for my students. And so I'd pay my superintendent more than the governor. I'm proud to.
Absolutely.
I wish I could pay him more because Lorena does such great things, and that starts with leadership.
Absolutely.
And this is gonna be a very scary industry, or I'm scared for this industry, an industry that neglects the leaders. I mean, my wife was a campus principal for years and years, and she had to step away 2.5 years before she was eligible to retire because of health issues.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but when the legislature passed, the biggest bill in history for school funding and how we're going to be paying educators so much more money, nothing for principals, nothing for assistant principals. And matter of fact, through TIA and everything, we are like,
there's teachers making significantly more than the campus leaders.
And now they don't want to come out of the classroom to take on more responsibility, to make less money. And I believe that the principal sets the culture and the climate for the campus. Superintendent sets the culture and the climate for the district. And of course, those are most oftentimes aligned, but we can't have great leaders not wanting the job. What other industry do you actually move up in responsibility but make less? Name an industry. Name an industry where they publicly attack the CEO, and complain about how, of course, you've got your anomalies like maybe Tesla and Elon Musk, making $1 trillion a year. But outside of that, nobody gets in the CEO's business. Public education, everybody gets in their business. Everybody. You don't even have to have a good point. You still get in their business. And we can't keep losing good superintendents before we start shouting from the mountaintops that something's got to change. And they're not all good.
No.
But those that aren't good get weeded out. Those that are good get pushed out.
I got to believe that Dr. Tessera has a Russ Johnson bonus somewhere in his contract.
He should. Oh my gosh, he should.
I'd be advocating.
Me. Yeah.
Y'all have done amazing work. I want to finish with this. Put your founder hat back on.
Okay.
What do we got to do to get more kids embedded in the workforce while they're in high school? What do we got to do? What do we got to do?
So, and this is something that I wrestle with because, I work with districts all over the state, and I see so many good pathways at larger districts, maybe even medium districts. And then the thought is smaller districts can't do this. And it's right in one regard because we don't have the same resource pool, because there's economies of scale. So, a Rockwall ISD can offer more CTE pathways than a Lorena can. That will always be the case. But that doesn't mean that we have to throw our hands up in the air and say we can't do it because we're small. And so, we've taken very intentional steps as a board to make sure that we're thinking outside of the box. So how can we partner with McLennan Community College? How can we partner with TSTC? How can we partner with Baylor? How can we even partner with area districts? What can we do virtually?
Mm-hmm.
Because, being in the tech industry, of course, I'm passionate about that because that's a workforce that, is in high demand, high pay.
Yeah.
And, you can do it virtually anywhere. And of course we need welders. Of course we need, all these other trades. But in small rural towns, we also have to figure out, are we asking our students about their interests? Because I get it, and I've talked to my superintendent. It's like, I want a cybersecurity course. And if there's only one student that's interested, I may not be able to offer that.
Right.
But what we need to do, and one district did this, I actually went and spoke. They had like a career and pathways night for teachers, for parents. And one of the nights was technology. And so they had someone from Google, someone from Microsoft. They had me there. And we just talked about the industry. And it opened up a lot of eyes of these parents,
yes,
which then allowed them to go home and have the conversation with their kids about, are you interested in technology? Because the interest will drive the need will necessitate the pathway. And so I think it starts by, we've got to really educate our parents, especially in smaller communities where we may not have the same exposure to what's on a broader landscape as it relates to things like tech and health sciences. But I think it starts with the board pushing on the system to be more innovative in its ways of delivering various, instructional, pathways.
I agree. I think we can get a lot done virtually. Matter of fact, I know we can get a lot done virtually within the school day.
Yeah.
With the school being the leader of the schedule, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I definitely want to make sure I'm not driving the fact that we don't have strong pathways, because we do.
Of course.
And we've started these conversations years ago, but now we have more tech pathways. Now we have, our robotics are going to state, and we've got like a Shark Tank type deal that we're doing now, and we just added cybersecurity to our computer science pathway, and so all of that begins by this being a priority from the board, because superintendent, they're sitting back and saying, you guys tell me what your priorities are, I'll go do it.
I execute it. Yep.
And so if we're not focused on that, if we're so focused on budget, if we're so focused on procurement, and we're so focused on, all these other things that demand our attention, but we're not focused in on, other things. My pastor always said, you'll know what's important to someone based on where they spend their time and where they spend their money.
Yep.
And so we just got to make sure we put our time and our money where our mouth is.
I think we leave it there.
All right,
man. Always good catching up with you. We need to collaborate on some things. We talked off camera, but I love your passion, particularly with our superintendents and their well-being, and you're seeing what I believe and feel the same way, that if we don't intervene and set the record straight, you're not going to have people to lead districts.
Yeah.
Because it's not worth their pain. It's not worth the time. It's not worth the toll it takes on that family.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Well, and thankfully we're starting to see the tide turn, because I think educators have always felt that, like, I'm in an industry that's so loved and so well respected, Austin will take care of us. And I think people are starting to see that, no, we're going to have to start making our voice heard, and imagine the change that we could impact with the 550,000 teachers across the state if we stood up and we became as loud as our critics and our opponents. We're bigger than them. Our group has bigger numbers. We just now have to be louder.
Absolutely.
And that's what I want. I'm going to be a loud voice, because it matters. Everything starts and ends with education. Whether we're perfect or not, we're setting the tone for future years, for future leaders, for every single industry. We're at the genesis of that in public education. So I'll stop talking.
You heard it here first and last. And Russ. Check him out. Tessera Technology Group. At least I was in line with the first pronunciation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, as always, for joining us.
Well, thank you for what you do for facilitating these conversations. I
love it,
because this helps get the word out. So you're making a difference. We see you.
I appreciate it. Join us next time. Solve for X. Thanks for joining us on Solve for X. Please follow, like, and subscribe for more episodes. And until next time, keep asking the right questions and solving for X.